Everybody, I'm Lex.
I'm Chris.
Bet you didn't know that. Hey, we're going over, I was about to say PowerShell CLI, but we're going over PDQ CLI, that's deploy and inventory. But before we get started, guys, I need to do a call out to some of our friends, Peter and Darren at Share Networks. They're in Queensland, Australia. They're enterprise users for 2 years now. This drink, lift your glasses, guys, is for you guys.
Kampai.
Cheers.
Japanese.
I always after a toast. So, CLI today, Chris, what do you think?
I love it.
Yeah, you love it. Come on, give us something better than I love it.
You guys, we got some good info today about how to get some stuff automated in your environments, including, well, especially in my case, in many cases, getting stuff done after you've imaged your machines.
Yes, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from this today, guys. So, should we jump in?
Let's do it.
Okay, so what we're going to start with, we're going to give you like a 10,000 foot view of basically the CLI. Chris, you want to?
Let's do it. Okay. So, many of you might be familiar with this thing called command prompt. It's fancy.
Everything's going to be fancy today, isn't it?
It is.
Okay.
It's amazing. But the easiest way to kind of find out these commands is to ask for them. PDQ Deploy. Help.
There's your list. Now, again, we're going to just run through a couple of these, and then we're going to show you how some of them works. But a couple of the big ones. You can check your database, guys. That's always a good one. That's the second one down there. I don't know if you can read that.
It's tiny. It's okay. But if you wanted to know more about it, you could also type PDQ, and let's get my mouse back on there, PDQ Deploy, help, check database, and it's not case sensitive.
So it'll give you kind of usage there.
Yep.
So
it's let me see if I can send it a little bit better.
I actually centered that for JJ earlier, man. You're messing with things now.
I know. That's what I do.
All right. So if you were to run that command, this is what you would get, basically.
Yeah, we can even run it here. We could do that. Let's pull it down a little bit, maybe. Yeah, magic.
Okay, I forget sound effects when we do things.
That's part of it. Like when you do command line, you got to have like a clickety-clackety mechanical keyboard and sound effects. At least I do.
It's because we don't have any drops.
Yes. So this is a good command. This is how you check your database is okay. Really easy to run. Really easy to find out how it runs. And look at all these other amazing commands. So
I guess another good one, guys, and I love this one, is delete schedule history. You know, if you're automating things like so many of us like to do, because I am the laziest sysadmin, except maybe Chris might have me beat, but
I don't know.
If I can automate it, I do. Now, what's caveat with the delete schedule history?
Well, I'll show you. So with delete schedule history, we'll show you. Let's find out. Help, delete schedule history. You might notice, or you might not.
Do you have to sing it when you type it? I mean,
sound effects and singing are appropriate for command line stuff.
All right.
So
essentially,
yeah. Notice here, it's actually specifying a single computer.
So I can't just nuke it all for everybody.
No.
No, but I can.
But you can if you use a fancy thing called PowerShell. You can do it in any other language if you want, but it's better in PowerShell because it's PowerShell.
PowerShell, yeah.
Well, in the bonus content, we have a link to a blog that I threw up just to show you how to do that, how to grab a list of computers using the PDQ Deploy, using the PDQ Inventory command line, I believe, to grab a list of computers, then using that to go over one by one and delete the schedule history. So.
And I think it's important to note that the reason why you'd want to delete the schedule history, for those of you who re-image a machine, keeping the same name. So this machine has had deployments before, you re-image it, has the same name. We store all of our information based off of the computer name, so you don't want an old computer that's been re-imaged to still have an old history. It's a way. For those of you who don't reuse the names, this is not going to be as big of an issue for you,
right.
Or an issue at all.
Yeah. Anyway, what he said.
Magic.
Yeah. All right. So what else we got? So that's always a hot button issue for you.
Tis. We got all the stuff, and I wish I could cover lots of things, but take a look at it. You read our little help. If you have any questions, reach out to us or read the documentation. That's it. I don't know if we have any questions that might be relevant to this.
Oh, mystical PDQ gurus. Can the PDQ GUI do everything that the command line can, or is there hidden functionality in the command line that we should be taking advantage of? Sincerely, John D.
Hey, John. Thank you for the question.
And calling us gurus, that is kind of loose use of guru, I guess. But
it's already gone to our heads. Yeah. But so, hidden functionality?
None.
None. There are some easier ways to do things, in my opinion, from the command line versus the GUI, because keyboard's much faster than mouse.
I hate clicking the mouse too. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, with PDQ Inventory, if you want to see what commands are available in PDQ Inventory, there's a lot more, because you can do things such as who's part of this collection, or what's this computer information, or add a computer, or do all this fun stuff. Well, if you don't have the PDQ Inventory console open, but you just want to quickly add a machine, you can do it from here. You want to quickly say, oh, you know what, I don't think my stuff's synced. Let's trigger an Active Directory sync. Oh, I can do that here. It's faster. You want to wake a machine? Use it. You can use the wake computer command from here. It's easy.
If you're a CLI guy, boom, this is always going to be faster.
Yes.
So I just want to point something out, and Shane, I hope you chime in on this. Using the command line needs to be licensed. I mean, just flat out needs to be licensed.
Well, the command line won't work in the free mode. The command line does require Pro or higher, but the point I think you're also trying to make is that that count when you're running a command, that counts as a concurrent session, a running session. So if you only have one license, and you've probably noticed this, you have multiple consoles that you try to run. If you're running central server, going to run into a licensing issue. Yes, this does require a license. So for the most part, people are using this appropriately, but you might run into a wall if you don't have the appropriate license.
Be aware, guys. That's all I brought that up for. So.
Oh, also one quick thing. There are a few command line things you can do in free mode, but it's nothing that you can't add computers, can't scan them, can't deploy, but you can at least find out your settings or where your database is stored. So
yeah, I should have mentioned that. There's some basic functionality.
Yeah, the important ones that we're going to cover today are pro or higher. Is kind of want to clarify.
Well, let's actually make some magic happen here.
Yeah,
let's deploy. So we're going to run you through some command line, show you how to do a deployment. So we're going to deploy Chris's fancy dir package. Now you guys will notice everything that Chris does says fancy on it.
Because everything I do is fancy.
Yes, it is. All right, so basically, we've got our package there. What we are going to do is, here's a...
let's switch over to here.
There we go. Here's a couple of ways, or a bunch of different ways that you can actually run those commands. Now, again, first you want to call it PDQ Deploy, and then you're going to do a deployment. You're going to say deploy, and then you're going to call your package, right? And that is right. Chris, can we highlight that bad boy right there? Okay, so this is your base right here.
Yep.
Okay, fancy dir, and then your targets. Wolverine does not exist anymore.
No, he doesn't.
I killed him.
He
thought he could live forever, but I chopped his head off. So.
Yeah, he destroyed Wolverine. How impressive is that?
So anyway, we're going to send this to Shaw Lab, and then...
Let's do it. So let's just run this line. I'm just going to run that one. Started. We can switch back over to deploy and see that, hey, a deployment did start.
And it's going to, as you notice right here, can you hold that key down so I can highlight?
Yes.
Right where we called it.
Oh, man. Snap. Awesome. See, that's why we say this is faster. I didn't have to click. I didn't have to...
All right. So now...
I guess I clicked my mouse once, but...
Let me ask you this, Chris.
Yes.
So I'm doing this from the console machine, which is great, but if I'm going to do this remote, like I've got a machine that's imaged, and I want to do it remote, how would I do that?
Good. There's a couple different ways to do that. You could use something such as PSExec as part of the PS tools, a suite of tools that are out there. I'm particular to PowerShell, as you might know, in which case I prefer PS remoting. Yeah. To do that, you can use the Invoke Command commandlet to do that, and I will show you that. So we actually have a machine here. Let's go to D10 Shalab here, or Shalab.
Shalab?
It's like shellac, but different.
It's the same, but only different.
Yes. So here I have this set up. We're going to go say, hey, Guinness, I want you to run this particular command that's inside this block. It can be anything PowerShell, anything, whatever that you want to run.
Okay, so lay a groundwork. Guinness is where our console is.
Yes.
Okay, actually it's where our central server is.
Good call.
Same thing, but okay, so we're telling Guinness to run that command on Shaw Labs, so...
Yes, and you might realize that this command here is actually surprisingly the same as the other command we just ran locally on Guinness, but now we're going to say run it on Guinness. But here's something that you might run into. If I run this, you might see an error that pops up saying, oh my goodness, something happened. Well, it's because...
We're logged in as Trixie. Is Trixie a console user, a licensed console user?
I don't know. Let's find out. In fact, you know what? We could find out from the command line. Amazing. So if we did, let's clear the screen here and do PDQ Deploy help, PDQ Deploy, let's see.
Console users.
Console users. No.
It's not.
You're going to have a bad time. So let's add.
So we're going to go ahead.
Yeah, while you're adding that, just want to call out that if you're running your PSExec, via PSExec or remoting, whatever, you're running the CLI from a user account credentials that are not listed as a console user, gonna have a bad time.
Gonna have a bad time.
Just like if you try to open a console and that from a user account that's not
Yes.
a console user that you've added. So Chris is showing us how to add that.
So we added that.
Now let's run
this
it.
again.
Bam, started. Let's switch back and take a look. There it is.
Fancy during again.
Oh man, that is the fanciest deployment I've seen in a long time. So,
Okay, so guys, and the reason this is important is like if you're going to do imaging, right? You're going to be calling from the. I mean, help me out here, Chris. Doing your imaging, you're going to be calling remotely to your console because obviously you're not imaging your console.
right.
So
So for example, if you use Fog, we use Fog here, but this can apply to any imaging solution. In Fog, they're called snap-ins. So you deploy your image. At that point, you can say at the end of deploying your image, run these programs or this bit of code or these scripts. Part of that, you could have a script to run like say, for example, that PowerShell script that would run something like this, and it would actually call phone home back to your PDQ Deploy console machine and say, run this package. That's great for one package, but typically over here, we kind of recommend schedules because they're a little more dynamic.
Well, and the nice thing, you can attach them
Yeah.
to auto deployment, so you get the most current stuff, which is what I
Yes.
like to do. Because I don't want to keep track of what's coming down. I want lazy as possible.
Yep. So in this case, if we had a schedule here, I have a schedule called Fancy Schedule. You might know that because it's fancy. So,
But let's just show them what's going to run in Fancy Schedule real quick.
oh yeah, good call.
So Fancy Schedule is going to kick off the packages.
It's going to kick off.
Fancy dir. Wow, surprise.
Surprise.
Probably didn't have to show them that. They probably could have guessed it.
Probably. You would have been right. And to D10, Shalab.
Shalaba.
So there's no triggers on this guy because I just want this to be my fancy schedule that happens after an image. I don't want it to run all the time. I just want it to run when I call that schedule. And we can do that from the command line. So
We can?
we can.
Let's do it.
Let us do it. So if you notice, which maybe you have or have not, if we were to run PDQ Deploy help on start schedule, which is the command you're looking for, if I could spell schedule, it's expecting the schedule ID.
Not the name, the
Not the
ID.
name. Yes, and that's important. And
This is how you find that.
yes,
55.
55. If you didn't know that and didn't see that, you could open this up, look around, and think, oh my goodness, where is that? And then you could close it and say, oh, there it is.
55. So yeah, that's important, guys, because you can call a package by name, but you got to call a schedule by the ID.
Yes. So if I pull this up and let's switch over to the schedule part of this. Number 55. If I start this, I'm just going to run this line. It'll start that schedule. There's no output from the command because there might not be anything attached to it. So why am I switching here? Go back to PDQ Deploy. And you can see that Fancy Dir is, well, it just barely ran. We just barely saw that because I'm slow. So
Chris, is there a command line way to add machines into that schedule?
hee. Let's find out.
Here's the thing. Whether there is or isn't, the easiest way to do this, okay, is image your machines, have your plugin drop
Yes.
them in an OU called New Machines, pull up my baseline that's
Yes.
not as fancy as yours.
It's not, but this is the better one because
This is
it's
the better way to
dynamic.
do this, okay? So if you pull up the baseline schedule,
Oh, why am I switching over to here? Baseline schedule.
okay, and you look at the targets in this, it's pointed at the New Machines OU. Now the nice thing about this is, one, I have this running every 15 minutes, so if you happen to not kick off the command line, which is more efficient, I think, actually, it'll catch them, okay? The only thing is you want to make sure your last step moves them out of the new OUs.
Yes.
Or you don't schedule it and just have it call, and you would call this schedule, and it would go after all the machines and New Machines.
Yep. And so, since many of you are probably asking yourself, but why must it be the schedule ID? Well, we're trying to make it so that you're calling a unique schedule, especially when you have the ability to possibly target a lot of machines and packages at once. But you can kind of go around that with some SQL, some SQL to.
Some fancy PowerShell. Hey, I'm catching on to fancy now.
Yeah, see?
That's
It's a
fancy.
good word. It's pretty
All
fancy.
right.
So, here, all we're doing is defining which schedule we want to use. We're going to point to what database we want to use for our deployments in here. We just want to use our local PDQ Deploy database. And then I'm just doing a query here to find what the ID is when a name equals whatever I define. In this case, fancy schedule. So,
And then you would call the schedule using the variables you've set up.
Yep.
Let's take a question.
Yeah.
Dear Lex and Chris, does the command line support the asterisk? Sincerely, Marcel L.
Hi, Marcel.
I'm going to go with no.
Does your command line support the asterisk? It's
Like
my counter
Slack?
question.
Like-
Yeah. So,
That's
is
kind
that
of a wild one there, man.
your
That
mom
would be a
goes to
bad. That could
college?
do a lot of bad really fast.
yeah. So here, in the sense that you're thinking, no. But in the sense where, yes, like for example, PowerShell, you can use wildcards to do a lot of different things. Yeah. But if you just want to say deploy all the packages that start with the letter P, no. But your best bet on doing something like that is to query the database directly using a wildcard, saying, give me all the packages that start with the letter P.
And then loop through it.
Yeah, and then just go through it and say, go do all these things. In fact, you could even do it on one line because the PDQ Deploy command.
Let's just talk about the most efficient way. You build one package with all the P's in it, call it package P, and deploy the nested package.
nested
But
package.
that's the easiest way to do it. So
And want to call out, obviously, Marcel. Number one, Marcel coming from Europe. Marcel's one of our oldest, not oldest, I don't know how old he is.
Hey,
He's one of
lift
our
the
longest
glass,
running
lift the
customers.
glass.
He's been around
Marcel,
for years, and he's
here,
got
buddy.
in from Europe. Marcel, if you do use SQL, don't forget that it's not an asterisk, but percent sign for the wildcard.
Yes. That's how it is. If you're asking about targets, not just package names, the same applies. If you want to do targets, pull it from a list of from inventory. You can pull it by querying Active Directory yourself.
we got a CSV list.
Oh,
here.
we do actually.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, any other questions, JJ?
Pause.
Dear Lex and Chris, is there any chance you will add ownership state equals 2? Take ownership for all existing and new users as a default parameter for the Adobe Reader DC Classic packages. Currently, I downloaded the package manually and changed the parameter and add to a schedule instead of using AutoDeploy. Thank you in advance, Matt T.
Hey, Matt.
Hi.
I'm going to look at Shane because I'm not sure what that does.
I'm not intimately familiar with what ownership state is on this on our
Jen, do
package,
you know?
but
No, I don't. We'll take a peek at it. I want to call out every now and then we do get requests to customize a package in the package library, and we have to try to make these packages apply to. It's a really big umbrella of applicable environments, and all of our customers out there, you guys have your own more narrow. Use cases really
your
of
scope's
how
a lot.
you use it. Yeah, and we still have to make it as broad as possible. But we'll take a peek at that and see what the ramifications are.
Thanks for the question, Matt.
yeah. Also, if you can't do it directly via parameters, if it can be set after the fact, you could add a post deployment step and do it
There
that
you
way.
go.
So
All right.
Cool.
So CSV.
CSV. Yeah.
CSV. So you get a list of computers from a CSV.
Yes. So we actually have a CSV somewhere. We actually listed this list of computers, blah, blah, blah.
Wow,
Just
it's
3.
always the same.
I know. I'm so predictable. If it's not fancy, it's something else.
Jordan's stuff.
It's
Usually
Jordan
mess with
stuff.
Jordan.
Or Corgis.
Okay,
But-
yeah.
So we have 3 machines here with a column header called computer. Very basic. So if we wanted to import that into, say, PowerShell, we could do that this way.
Okay, when we do this, do we want to do this? Are we going to deploy, or are we going to do an inventory on this one?
Oh, we can deploy this one.
Let's do a deploy.
Yeah. So in this case, we want to do, in fact, let's actually comment that guy out. We want to deploy the package fancier, and we want to get the targets. So here we're going to import that list of machines, and then we're going to use the header computer when it's stored in that variable. So if we were to run this part, you can actually see that here, targets from CSV. There they are. Let's actually run that here. So I'm just doing F8 here. I'm doing shortcuts. Run that, and it'll deploy that package to those 3 targets. Switch over, and you will see that those 3 targets that we pulled from a CSV
Are
are
queued
loaded.
up.
So,
Now, so the nice thing about this, the command line, you can launch it to multiples.
Yes.
The command line, with PowerShell, you can walk through it. In this case, just put computer after computer after computer,
Yes.
isn't it? So it just listed them.
Yep.
So you can do multiples at the same time with one command.
yes. So
So,
that's about
interestingly enough, you can do very similar things doing scans on inventory.
it. Yay.
Should we show a couple of
Let's do
those?
it. Let's do inventory scans. So here's the basic. But if you needed to know, PDQ Inventory help. There are a ton here. We're not going to go over them today. Use the help to find out more about them, such as scan computers. You can get more information. So we're going to go over this one right now. Scan computers, we want to scan the entire collection, new machines in this case. We could go take a look at inventory and see that new machines contains, in this case, one machine. Interesting. One machine.
Well, that's because Rancid's new.
Oh.
All right,
then
well,
let's
okay,
scan.
didn't want to overdo it, so
Okay.
we got new machines there.
All right, so in this case, let's go ahead and run it. Let's do scan collection, just scan this line here, or run this line. There we
There we
go.
go, one machine.
We'll go over and see, oh, yep, you are scanning.
You know, those other ones got done imaging and got moved into a other OU, so
yeah.
Rancid's not done yet, but
That's right, Rancid, finish up.
that's right.
So it's really just that easy, though. Just calling it. You can do it for multiple collections this way. You can run here. I'm just going through it. Our command line itself will accept a list here of new machines and my fancy
static.
Yes, that's my fancy static collection. So
I don't know why I keep shaking my head, and it's the same all the time, but there it is. So Chris made a static collection, just went and selected machines.
yep, now let's run that one. There, look at that. It triggered all of them. It's magic. No, it's not. It is command
CLI.
line. See that?
Just say hello. CLI.
Yeah, we were in sync there. That was amazing.
It's a kind of man.
Speaking of syncing, AD sync. can be
80
done.
yeah, do it. Do the 80 sync, and then I want to talk about remote, because really the meat of this is
Actually,
being able to remote
let's jump
this.
into that.
Okay.
Oh,
We got a question?
Yeah, question.
Awesome.
Dear Lex and Chris, is there a way with a PowerShell command to create conditions to skip installation on machines where the package is already installed? Sincerely, Massimo R.
hello, Arcama Massimo.
Hey, you know, I'm sure there's a way to do it in PowerShell. I would definitely use a collection that excludes machines that already have it.
There's the easy way to do it. If you've scanned the machines before, that's a good way.
Yeah.
If you haven't scanned the machines or they're not in your inventory for some other reason, you want to do it in PowerShell, you can, yes. The easiest way to do that, and I'm not going to go into super details here for lack of time, but whatever you qualify to check for, if you're checking the registry for the uninstall string for that application or querying WMI for that application, you get a result based off that. If it's found, you just exit that script with a certain value, say a predefined value you determine, exit 123. On your step, I'll show you for a package. If we had a package here, you could then define success code. If we did a PowerShell step,
Need to be centered.
I know.
So,
That is so off-center.
so ultimately, I just want to point something out. Not only is my explanation easier and quicker,
If stuff,
his explanation, yeah.
if stuff exit 123, this is pseudocode, this is not real. But if I did that, or was calling a script where it did check for that, you could add the success code down here for the case of someone that already has it or doesn't have it. If you do a if you do a success code, I am talking fast today. Just note that when it does back out, it's going to be treated as a success and will show as successful, which may or may not be what you want. You might want it to fail, in which case don't add it as a success code, but still exit with a different value than 0. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
And I think Lex is mentioning of just collections. This is you
So
can
much easier.
if you have the collection library, we have so many collections out there. It's a good cheat sheet of show me machines that have this application, show me machines that don't, show me machines that have it but have an old version.
yep.
Hey, Chris,
Tom.
you're talking real fast. Why don't you take a drink, take a breath. Yeah, okay, and then let's talk about remote. Unless you got another question, JJ, or should we hit remote? Okay.
Okay, so we kind of briefly showed you at the beginning here kind of how to do the remote thing, right?
Yeah, well, so here's, there's the dinner, right? This is the dessert, okay? Being able to run this remote is what you're going to be doing for imaging. It's
Yes.
what you're going to be doing for imaging. Help me out, Chris. All I can think is imaging all of a sudden.
Imaging is the strong one, but if you have any other application or another suite of tools that you use in conjunction with the PDQ applications, this might be beneficial.
Yeah.
Because you might be using a CCM, for example, or you might be using something else that you want to then handle part of it in deploy for whatever reason, maybe because it's easy to use, wink, yeah.
Wink.
So that being said, whatever the case may be, if you want to trigger it from another application, this is how you could do it from a remote machine.
Yeah. So again, the command in PowerShell, and wow, I'm actually taking over for a second on PowerShell, is Invoke Command. That's how you do it. Are there a few caveats on the console? You got to be able to run remote commands.
Yes.
Okay, which is covered in another webcast or a blog or something.
It is. The long and the short of it, you need to type the command on the target, enable PS remoting force. That'll enable WSMan on that target.
When
take
you say
stuff.
target, he's talking about the console. Console has to be allowed to do remoting. Am I right? Or am I
Correct.
backwards? Okay.
When I say target in this case, yes, you're right. Because we're calling it from D10 Shalab, the target in this case is Guinness. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
And so
whatever machine you've got right, highlight Guinness right there, that guy
there.
has to be able to run remote commands from PowerShell.
Yes.
That was the worst highlight ever, man.
I've had a lot of whiskey, so I blame that.
26 minutes
Game on.
into his whiskey. Yeah.
So anyway, this one, we'll probably run into the same issue that we saw earlier. So if we try running this command, we want to scan D10 Shalab, say part of our imaging or part of another chain of applications. We
Love
want to
that name,
scan
by the way.
application. It's wonderful. Let's run this guy. It's going to pump out an error, which we are now familiar with.
So I'm assuming Trixie is not a console user.
You would be correct.
Oh,
If you're not correct, I'm going to be sweating bullets here. So
it's not like we didn't test this earlier, right?
we don't always test, but when we do it live.
live.
So Trixie. So if we then switch back to D10 Shalab, we run this command.
So
and
the reason we
suddenly-
did this for you guys again is one, you got to be able to run remote commands on your console or central server in this case. And I would run it against a central server. I wouldn't run against console if you're going to do remote commands, right? You've got central server installed, run it on the server. You need to make sure that the person you're logged in on the remote machine that's calling it, has console access.
Yes.
Those two things, very good chance you're going to be able to make that happen.
Yep, that's really all there is to it. We're not going to go into details for how to do it from, say, PSExec, but if you're familiar with PSExec, the
Very
syntax
similar.
is very, very easy. So,
Very similar.
but it's the exact same concept. So.
What do you think, Shane? Do you think I beat that horse to death?
No, actually, it was nice to hear, man.
Oh, okay.
It's nice to hear you waxing poetic, brother.
Especially with PowerShell.
Be excellent to each other.
Most excellent. So, in addition to this, as part of the other bonus content, I do want to call out, because some of the complex stuff you can do in inventory, which I just find amazing, is custom fields and being able to import them.
Yeah.
So,
gosh.
we have these two wonderful commands. You can actually create a custom field, and you can then use the import custom fields wizard to import data into those custom fields from a CSV file.
So if you were trying to take another inventory and merge it, this is a way you could probably automate that.
Yeah, check out the bonus content. There's a link to the blog about that, and just love it. You know what? Do we have time for another question?
Dearest Lex and Chris, I'm running a command script in PDQ right now. Is there a way to see the output of the script as it's happening, or do I have to wait until it passes or fails to see the output? Thanks in advance, Casey.
Casey?
You're going to have to wait, assuming I'm understanding what you're talking about here, but the command has to wait before it gives back any results to send back, and this is true for command line or for PowerShell.
So, okay, you could.
That doesn't update based on state.
Right? No.
No,
No,
so
we I'm going to go ahead and interject.
Please.
by all means.
Put your hand down, Lex. When you say command script, I'm assuming you mean command step, but either way, whether it's an install step or a command step, we execute whatever command you specify, and then we literally wait for the return stream, either the standard out, as well as the standard error. We wait for those streams to come back, so we're not able to monitor that while it's going. We've turned that over to the process, and we wait for that process to exit. That's where the exit code comes in, and then if there has been standard out, we will put that. We will redirect that to a file called output.log, and then we will
Display that.
show that.
Yep.
Yes, but that you won't see that in the in PDQ Deploy. Looking at the commands that were run, the steps that were executed, you won't see that until that step is completed with a return code.
Yep. And that's true for the command step as well as the PowerShell step.
Yep.
Just be aware that the PowerShell step, when it does return, we have a little mini error handling wrapper around it because PowerShell itself doesn't return numbers as codes; it returns exceptions, and so and error objects. Anyway, we do that. We wrap our own stuff around that, and so you'll see something like minus 37. Something 05, 37105, or I forget exactly what it was, but there'll be something there. So yeah,
But there's a little for those of you who are paying attention, if there is output you want, and it doesn't show up by default, try to redirect that output on your just to a file called output.log. So ./output.log. And if it works, depending on the application or the process, then we will see that file and report that output.
yep.
Yeah. What do you think? We got another question? Or have we, we've covered
I
this
think
one?
we've got it. This is something. Please use it.
Chris, you want a gummy bear?
I-
Exit, man? They're blue.
I blew. Da 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 da.
And these ones don't
I'm
have
glad
vodka.
someone's eating them.
I'll eat one.
Hey guys, thank you for watching again. You know, command line for all you command line nerds like myself, and well, Chris definitely. You know, hit it up.
Yep. Let
for
us know
watching.
we've done it. It's so
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Catch y'all later.
Bye.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, Marcel L. and Matt T., winners of PDQ Swag, and also Carrie R., winner of our PDQ Vintage Floppy Coaster. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. Thanks again for watching our webcast, and we'll see you back here next week.